Hello, welcome to PubShorts episode 36. There's no other way. My name is Dr. KK, Innovation Officer at Shrank and Enago, and I have with me Tony, a big fan of Blur, the band that has
I
that.
won't say a big fan of Blur, but I do appreciate their music. I mean, I've listened to their music since their first album, back in 1991. I think very early
This
anyway. I
song
was still,
is 1991. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, a long time. They're one of these bands that have been very successful, but people only tend to know a relatively small number of songs.
Right. Right.
Apart from that.
So we have titled this episode "There's No Other Way" because for all the crisis and all the problems in publishing, there's no other way but solving them using some form of automation and transformative agreements and everything. Tony, so Tony, if you
Very,
could introduce yourself and introduce the show and
of
go ahead.
course.
Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm Vice President for Partnerships here at Enago, and I look after our mostly publisher relationships, but I also work in other areas with research organisations and with universities.
And
And
Pubsh- yes.
PubShorts, I'm sorry, yes, of course. PubShorts is a weekly episodic podcast. I love the word episodic. I never use it enough. Where KK and I discuss topics of relevance and interest relating to technology and relating to the world of scholarly publishing. And if you find us on LinkedIn or on YouTube, you'll see on YouTube we have a channel with I think this is over 35 episodes already
Yeah.
uploaded. So please like and share the videos with your friends and colleagues.
Right. So I'll get right to our first story. We are talking about a big acquisition, I would say, Tony, in the world of publishing and scholarly
Yeah.
STM. So Molecular Connections acquires Morressier, redefining scholarly publishing with trusted, scalable solutions. This is their own, I think, our press release. I would say there's also an article from Scholarly Kitchen that I'll briefly reference. So, Molecular Connections, if for those who are not aware, is a leader in digital transformation, and it has acquired Morressier, which is known for research integrity and for scholarly workflows. Would you agree with me, Tony, if I say that the Journal Manager is Morrissier's flagship products and it's central to this strategy?
I yeah, they've got a number of products, but I think the best known one is their journal manager. Yes, indeed.
Right. So the aim for this, as per the people in Molecular Connections, is to help publishers address challenges like research integrity, and a Molecular Connection is known for its AI-driven innovation. And the one of the things that is mentioned in this article is that there is a strong 70% strong female workforce. So that's in terms of a diversity oriented, DEI oriented, news story. This is very good. And the CEO of Molecular Connection states that this opportunity is to provide a platform that's Mauritius platform on which a variety of Molecular Connections existing services can more effectively reach the market. This is what I understand. And there have been a lot of stories in terms of partnerships. IOP and Mauritius have partners. CCC has partnered Mauritius, and we have been talking about Morressier in terms of research integrity. So overall, Tony, what are your thoughts? Where do you think this is going?
I think it's interesting that you've got two technologically quite advanced organisations coming together. Morressier have been very effective over the last few years in terms of building their market share and their brand. They've been successful in getting funding from the equity markets. And clearly, they see the vision of growth through expansion with a partner like Morressier. I would like Molecular Connections, who also have an excellent reputation. So I think this is definitely one to watch in terms of how they progress as a single organisation.
Yeah, another point of view regarding this story can be found on this article on Scholarly Kitchen, which is titled "Molecular Connections buys Morressier." And the main thing that I gleaned from this article, Tony, is that the CEO plans to have an IPO for Molecular Connections in 3 to 4 years. That'll become public, and it's very good, and it'll become Molecular Connections will become a key player in publishing infrastructure. From my point of view, my personal point of view, because I associate, I guess, research integrity and Maurice here together. I am excited for new workflows that will reach more. I guess it will help solve more research integrity issues
You
that we.
know, and this the space that we're in is that publishers, researchers, research organizations need resources, need tools to give them that kind of those research integrity checks and make sure that it's the content, everything is as it should be. So this is an interesting development, I think.
Right. So it's a positive news, but there is questionable news from the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association. This is a story titled Fully Open Access Journals Output Shrank in 2023, but hybrid OA made up the lost ground. So I'll quickly read out my notes. The main point is already there in the headline. So we are talking about an overall open access article growth which has slowed down to 4% in 2023, and in terms of the number of articles, about 1.2 million articles published by OASPA members have been published by OASPA members in 2023, and CC by license. It remains the most popular types of copyright, I guess, licensing, and hybrid journals are. I've seen a CC by BY, which is attribution license
CC
article.
BY.
Yeah, so the top three publishers account for a major share of the output, which is led by, I think, MDPI, which is followed by Elsevier. So overall, I thought it was, I would say, let's say worrisome news for open access, but hybrid OA is rising. What are your thoughts, Tony?
I don't know if it is necessarily worrying, at least not from my perspective. I suppose if you think about the way the market has moved over the last few years, increasing number of read and publish agreements, you know, which would include hybrid journals, and therefore more availability to those journals. Maybe it's not too surprising that there's a growth there. I suppose the fact that there's been a reduction fully open access journals. Well, we have seen these issues in the last couple of years with some of those big open access publishers with retractions and, you know, special issues, for example. So I think there's been some clawing back. So I suspect this is just a blip.
From a
we're bouncing back.
From a researcher point of view, because preprints are becoming even more relevant and they sort of go hand in hand with, I guess, open access publishing to a certain extent, at least some types of it. So do you think this is worrying from a researcher point of view? Because as far as I understand, we provide preprint services as well for researchers who want to, you know, find the best preprint. So would a researcher be worried about such news?
No, I don't think the researchers should worry about this. As I say, I personally, I think this is a blip. I think this is just a resetting of the market that's taken place as a result of, you know, the big retractions that happened with organisations like Hindawi, which is now part of Wiley, and some of the other withdrawal activity that's taking place. I think that it will bounce back quite quickly.
All right. So then we are moving to a story, this is the only outlier, it is related to peer review. It is a perspective published in PNAS titled "The Present and Future of Peer Review: Ideas, Intervention, and Evidence." I thought we needed to talk about it, but probably we could have talked about it in the peer review episode that we had. But there's just a general sort of points that we have been discussing. So it basically is a review about what is wrong or what can be improved in the peer review systems. And so some of the problems highlighted include poor quality of peer review, bias in peer review, low reliability of peer review, and the slow processes, and the rise of predatory journals. All of the things that, Tony, we have discussed in the past.
Yeah.
And there are some remedies being discussed, from open and transparent reviews to reviewer training and even monetary compensation. So among the remedies, one thing that struck out to me, I don't know if I can find it quickly, but it's a suggestion of having a preprint peer review. It sort of feels wrong because that's preprints are pre-peer review publications. So what do you think do you think preprint reviews or peer reviews, if you want to call them, or maybe another name, would become?
I think it's going to be increasingly common that there's some kind of not control, but some checks taking place for preprint content, and part of that could be, you know, some kind of light peer review to sense check the content. And preprints, and we discussed this before, preprints in certain research areas are actually more dominant than the journals themselves. You think of it's an area like high energy physics, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or computational physics. You know, the preprints, or astronomy for that matter, astrophysics. The preprints there are the first places that a researcher goes. Not the journals themselves. They will go to the journals eventually to validate their references often. But it's the first place that the researcher goes. So having some kind of controlled overlay, long as it's timely, long as it's you know, it doesn't delay the preprint, doesn't delay access. Yeah, I think it's an interesting development. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I think it should have happened pretty sooner.
Yeah, I mean it's mentioned right here. This is a section for preprint peer review, that the possibility to use AI approaches that can scale up massive reviews of preprints. And in fact, you know, we are currently working on something like this to help to at least to help some of the major preprint servers solve some of their problems. And it is very I mean the future is, you know, AI assisted workflows, and we just talked about Morressier providing a very stable workflow. So maybe this is the future, and maybe we have multiple levels of review, because preprint
Yeah,
can have its own review, and then maybe journals can have a human sort of oriented peer review with AI assistance, which is something again
yeah.
we talked about. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, and I think, you know, it's not black and white. I think there are multiple, as you said, there's a whole spectrum of peer review options, and I think this is just extending that to preprints, which I think is an interesting, really interesting.
Right, right. So now we go to a research musings, I guess, post. It is titled "The Reviewer Paradox: More Publications, Fewer Peers." So this is a very interesting thing. The main theme is that, you know, even main sort of point in the story is that even though we have a lot more publications than we used to have, that does not mean that we may have as many reviewers to handle the peer review volume. So the argument made is that because there are publications from more publication, there'll be more experienced reviewers, but that doesn't translate to peer review. So that's the thing, and that could be because, you know, the act of writing a paper and, you know, going through that entire process is time consuming, and hence that does not equate to, okay, I have more time for reviewing papers as well. So now this one, I mean, I think we all know this, but we still need a solution for this, and maybe AI assisted reviews could be a solution for it. What do you think, Tony?
Um, maybe. I think the jury's still out as to whether AI assisted review in itself, without human intervention, is a good thing. But I think, you know, these tools are going to get better and better and better. So I think we have to keep a watching brief. But interesting, you know, if it can answer some of those peer review questions,
Mm-hmm.
some of the systematic sort of routine questions,
Mm-hmm.
without necessarily making a value judgment on this of whether this is moving science forward, or whether it's novel, or whether it's yeah, maybe there's a value there.
Right.
But I think I'm basing that on what the tools I've seen available today, and they are getting better. So there's no question.
Right. One thing I think we should mention, it is mentioned here, is to identify peer reviewers. You could have a much more optimized workflow with some sort of AI optimization that's already in the works with some
Yeah,
of the brands that we already are aware of, and
yeah,
I'm hoping that at least maybe in the next 5 years, 10 years or so, there will be some amount of addressing the problem of peer review in terms of volume. Let's hope for it, Tony.
okay.
And in terms of again, a sort of a concerning news story, this is a news article from Nature titled "Who's Quitting Academia? Data Reveal Gender Gaps in Surprising Fields." So I don't know if it's surprising to you, but study includes fields like neuroscience and biochemistry, even in balanced fields. So these are the fields. I think it says that there is a discrepancy which is more than expected. Even in places where there is no such discrepancy, women still leave at higher rates, and toxic workplaces are the key reason for this. And this study tracked over 86,000 scientists across 38 countries. So obviously, reiterating the need for equality and equity, DEI, basically in the context of science and academia. You've been around, Tony. You've been around the block a lot. So how have
Yeah,
things?
I'm old.
Look, I'm saying that in a positive way. You have seen a lot happen in the last several decades. So, how have things changed back when you started working in academia to where things are now? Is it a gradual positive trend in terms of DEI?
I'm surprised to see this data, as I thought that more and more um, female scientists were entering and staying in research in academia. The fact that they're leaving because their workplaces are toxic, I think it just shows kind of the competitive nature of these institutions, and how it's becoming increasingly non-viable for people to stay there. I think that's maybe something that governments need to address with those research institutions to ensure balance, and that they are balanced. I mean, I know we're talking about this in a future episode, but I do wonder how some of these policies that are coming out of the US, for example,
Yes.
are going to impact on not just on the gender gap, but also on in other areas as well.
Yeah, you're right, Tony. I mean, while we were discussing what to discuss in this episode and the future episodes, there are so many stories. I think there are about 11 stories directly related to the policy changes by the Trump administration that we'll talk about in the next episode. It's a
Yeah.
specific episode. So let's again have cross our fingers and hope that things will be better in terms of DEI, at least in non-US geographies. Now, this is a non-US I guess story. It's a quick hit. So I'm going to attempt to pronounce this. It is titled IEEE and Capish sign 3-year transformative agreement to accelerate
Very good pronunciation.
okay, to accelerate open access publishing in Brazil. So this is again, it's a quick hit. The whole idea is that we are talking about transformative agreements throughout in every episode. So this is researchers from 163 Brazilian institutions can now publish in over 200 IEEE journals. And articles are instantly available and free to read, and the costs for open access and subscription content are covered by the license fees, the classical transformative agreement. So my question to you, Tony, we have researchers from Brazil who seek our services. Brazil has a huge researcher base. Could such transformative agreements transform sorry, pun intended, Latin American and South American research areas in general, in terms of improving research output and maybe citations and everything? Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see these announcements regarding CAPES. I mean, for years I called them capes, by the way, until somebody, a Brazilian, corrected me. There have been funding difficulties with changes in administration in Brazil. It doesn't necessarily help South American. Generally, it would certainly help the Brazilian researcher. Just because there's a deal in Brazil doesn't mean to say a Colombian or a Paraguayan researcher will benefit in any way, unless they're working at an institution in Brazil. But it will certainly help the Brazilian researchers. Having that funding available, having that assurance that their research can be communicated in exactly the same way as one of their North American or European colleagues.
Yeah, I didn't mean to generalize Brazil and South America, but rising tides, that if Brazil improves, and I'm expecting the rest of this Latin America.
Brazil was one of the original BRIC countries, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think it still is in terms of the opportunity for growth and development of research. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So now we are going across the globe to China. So this is a story published in Microbiology Society. So it's titled Microbiology Society Publish and Read Agreement Signed with the Chinese Academy of Medical Sciences. So this is again something that we keep a close eye on because we have clients in China that we work with. So this deal supports researchers with access to society titles and a fee-free open access publishing. Again, similar to what we just discussed. The agreement was established with the help of Charlesworth Group. So that's the best part. We can our brands are helping this, and our friends and colleagues are helping this go through. It includes access to the entire archive of society content and dating back to 1947, and it covers all society journals. So first of all, everybody for everybody from Charlesworth who we work with, who are our colleagues, congratulations on getting this done. So, Tony, your thoughts on this about how
one of many deals that our colleagues in Charlesworth have helped bring over the line. I mean, Charlesworth recently celebrated its 25th anniversary in China. I should say the company itself has been going nearly 100 years, but the China business has been going since the late 90s. And I think, without wanting to sort of favour them, they understand the China market probably better than anybody else in terms of providing independent publishers support for Western researchers, Western publishers. So if anyone can bring this sort of deal over the line, it's definitely our colleagues at the Charlesworth Group.
Yes, and if you want to know more about it, please visit the Enago.com /publishers page to know what all technological support and publishing related support that we or services that we provide. Charlesworth provides. So we'll be love to hear from you what your thoughts are regarding this. And moving on to the last story, Tony, it is another sort of transformative agreement story. Over 50 additional institutions covered by the new American Chemical Society read and publish agreements. So this provides again access to ACS chemistry titles and supports open access publishing. Notable institutions include HEBI's consortium in Germany.
Hebis.
Hebis. Okay, all right.
Hebis.
And the Seoul National University in Korea, which we both have visited, Tony. I for workshops, I guess you for something else. So
I did. I visited libraries there several times.
yes, yes. So interesting mix of consortium data across Eurasia, and again, just another transformative agreement. So I think if I remember correctly, I think you predicted. What did you predict that was the leading trend in 2025? I forget. AI.
AI
Okay.
and increasing growth in read and publish agreements.
Oh, okay. So you did predict this. So we have we are going to talk about so many agreements. So I think this is the way forward, and I'm so happy for all the researchers in all the universities that are now getting access to this.
Yeah, including my my alma mater at the Hochschule Reutlingen in Germany, where I did my first degree there.
This one, right?
The second one,
Oh,
the one
okay.
above. Yeah,
Based out of
South Germany,
what city, if I may know?
Reutlingen. It's just
Oh,
not
okay.
far from not far from Stuttgart. It's right in the middle of. It was just on the edge of the Black Forest. I tell you, there was the most interesting thing about this, by the way, this article. I think it's it's interesting to see how read and publish agreements are, continuing to blossom. Was this exactly this last almost throwaway line about read and green agreements, which I'd never seen. I'd never seen that before. Maybe I'm slightly out of touch in terms of some of these license descriptions that exist. But the fact that an organization there's no embargo at all on research on the content that's been produced, I think is a tremendous step forward.
Well, let's just hope that things become better in terms. Press the wrong button, Tony. Apologies for the for everybody because I pressed.
Quick ad there. Quick ad.
No, it was not meant to be. It was an OBS screen that I've not been using, but accidentally pressed that. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of our episode. So Tony, so we talked about transformative agreements and peer review and everything. So what has been transformative in your life over the last few days? Has something been transformed?
No. Well, if anything has been transformed is my working space. I'll be moving into a new working space tomorrow.
Well, is it a better desk and a better seat?
It's a better space generally, just a nicer, brighter space to work in.
All right. So, Tony, if somebody were to listen to us or watch us for the first time, where can they find more about PubShorts and Enago and Trinka? And if they want to, let us, connect with us, get in touch with us in terms of topics suggestions, sure. How can they do it?
So, I think I mentioned this at the top of the episode. The episodes of PubShorts are available on LinkedIn. They're also available on YouTube. So please visit the YouTube link PubShorts channel, where you'll be able to see the full run of the 35 episodes that we've already recorded. If you want to contact either KK or me, we're on LinkedIn. Or if you want to contact me directly, you can reach out to me at tonyo@enago.com.
All right. I cannot leave you without asking a song or a music-related question. Your favorite Blur song? Because
I think my favorite Blur song, only because of the secret heavy metal person deep down in me, is song number 2.
I see.
Which was it was a throwaway song. It was a song they intended. They just were mucking about in the studio. They had no intention of releasing it, and it's probably one of their best known songs.
Well, that's a song that I played, I think, the most of Blur. But I think I because of I like mellower songs. I somehow like country house, right? Country house is one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, that's country house and park life. I found a little bit twee, but they're all right.
And I love the riff in "There's No Other Way." So
exactly. That's what got me in the first time as well.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to the end of this episode, PubShorts episode 36. There's no other way, and we'll be back soon with another episode where we'll discuss all the consequences of the policy decisions that have been made by the Trump government related to research. That'll be in the next episode. But until then, this is Dr. KK signing off on behalf of everyone as well as Tony. Bye, Tony. We'll see you in the next one.
See you soon.